And tonight we're talking For All Mankind, directed by Reinert from 1989. In July 1969, this is from the Criterion website, the space race ended when Apollo 11 fulfilled President Kennedy's challenge of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No one who witnessed the lunar landing will ever forget it. Al Reinert's documentary, For All Mankind, is the story of the 24 men who traveled to the moon, told in their words, in their voices, using the images of their experiences. 40 years after the first moon landing, it remains the most radical, visually dazzling work of cinema yet made about this earth-shaking event. That's it. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
So I, years ago at some point, I was house sitting for a member of faculty at my university, and he had a copy of this, and so I was like, hey, Criterion, and I remember watching it, putting it on, and like not really being like super into it. He's like a big moon guy. He loves moon landing stuff. He's done like art involving moon stuff. So for him, this is like totally the bee's knees. And I just thought, I was like, yeah, moons, whatever. So watched it again. I was kind of like, moon landing. And then like I tried like watching this on my PS4. It was giving me shit. Tried reconverting it, gave me more shit, and I was like mad. And I was like, I don't want to watch this on my fucking laptop. This is bullshit. So I had to watch it on my laptop because I just figured I had to get done. So I watched it, and this is just like a pretty good documentary. It's not like, again, it's not my total like area of like, wow, man, moons and space. I never wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid. I've never really had that much of an interest in
ambition,
space travel. I don't know what ambition is.
Yeah,
and I was just kind of like, moon stuff and like weird like realpolitik and statesmanship and pissing contests between countries. That stuff is all just like, I find that interesting, but the moon is kind of just like a backdrop to it. In that time period from when I first watched this to now, I did a lot of research into like Arctic like voyages and trips back in the 1800s, early 1800s, which was something that the British government did with their navy, because essentially it had become the dominant power in the world. France had been vanquished, and they were like the top guns, and they're like, well, we're gonna open up that Northwest Passage. We're gonna find it, and we're gonna open up trade, and we're all going to get rich. And so they just kept sending ships to the Arctic, which was all frozen and was never going to work. But they just kept sending people to this inhospitable place that no one could ever really like live, because they were going through areas that like people did not live in. There was no Inuit, like space, and it's a white empty vacant place that like you need to have proper equipment to have, and you have to have the right technology to last. So it was like there's a lot of like similarities between traveling to the moon and just going to the Arctic, between like the difference of like 1820 and the difference to 1969. And of all time, honestly, it never gets easy to travel to the moon. Hence, we don't go there that often. But yeah, watching this again, it's like, it's good. It's fine. I probably wouldn't like go out of my way to like watch it again. It's, my thoughts on it. I think one of the interesting things is there's no talking heads, which is kind of like a go-to now. Instead of like lots of shots of like old guys in polo shirts talking about the good old days with their names subtitled beneath them as they talk about stuff, they just have those guys' voices go over top of the old footage that they got from NASA. And it's kind of like a weird thing where they've like edited together like all these Apollo trips and all these guys who went on to the moon, and they've kind of put it together into one trip. But it's like, well, this is like multiple trips, and I guess like, oh, here's a little bit of drama. Oh no, this thing started leaking out. This is all failed. But then they're like, oh no, it's all good. We're gonna land anyway. So there's like weird stuff like that, which like At first I was like, oh, is this like the Apollo 11 trip? But no,
Yeah.
no, it's like Apollo 8 and 11 and 14, which of course, as I'll talk about later, does nothing but fuel certain contingencies of people in this world, conspiracy nuts. But yeah, no, this is like totally solid, fine documentary filmmaking. I like that Brian Eno, and he apparently scored this like back in 1983. And it took like 6 years for it to make, and he wound up making like another track for it altogether, or some different tracks because he used it elsewhere. So I'm always like, I got a soft spot for that, particularly its use in Charlie Brooker documentaries. I can't remember which one it was, but that's like the first time I ever heard The Ascent. But yeah, those are kind of my general thoughts on this bad boy. RJ, you've already spoiled people, but what did you think of For All Mankind?
Man, I think space is so fucking cool. That was my first note even. Space is so cool. I never wanted to be an astronaut. I just really was in Aliens, even when I was a little kid. They had these things. They were like Beanie Babies. They were called alien babies. And I had those. And you could get like different ones. Like there was a cowboy one. There was a disco one. I had a couple of those. And I thought they were the shit, man. I thought aliens were so cool. What does the aliens have to do with this? Everything. No, yeah, I had never seen this before. I mean, I have obviously seen a lot of the footage that gets used in this. But I thought this documentary was fucking awesome. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. I thought more than anything, I thought it was really well put together. I thought was edited very nicely. I thought all the shots were really good. I thought the sound editing was really good. They did a lot of cool things like with the cameras where, because when they were filming like in 0Gs, the camera was sometimes spinning. They would do stuff like the shots of the ship taking off, like the rocket. They would like spin the camera around. There's super cool shots of like just the Earth with like the back emptiness of space and the Earth is kind of floating through it. I thought that was all really good. Like I said, I think it's really well put together. It's super inspirational. USA. But like honestly, I think it actually is. Like a lot of the stuff that they say, I think is super like quotable and dare I say deep. There was a lot of stuff I thought was awesome. Like there's a part where a guy says he's like looking out at the Earth and he goes, each image comes in a flash and reluctantly let go. And I was like, yeah, man, I get it. I was like, I get it, dude. Yeah, no, I don't know. I thought it was really fucking cool. I love seeing space stuff, especially like I said, this kind of inspirational stuff. The JFK start, I think, is such a...
My very first note was, remember when the President of the United States was a respectable leader of the free world?
Yeah, exactly. Like
fuck it's so depressing. It's so fucking like well, I mean like so like the mythologizing of like or the mythology of like JFK is like ridiculous. Like it's like kind of like he was like the greatest man who's like ever lived, who's ever led a country or whatever. It's like yeah, okay, there was some problems. Like there's like he came about in a very like crazy time in like the Western world, but like just like oh look, he's like so like dignified and like comes off as like someone you'd like totally throw your hat in with. Like he's not like, well, you know, he's the lesser of two evils, you know. Like you feel like yeah, you could totally see why people would buy into him and like throw in, but and just like eloquent and even like through that like his hilarious like Bostonian accent, just bringing like our country together, even though it's like in this ridiculous thing. It's like we're going to put three men into a metal tube, pack it full of explosive, and shoot someone at this dead piece of like matter floating around the Earth to prove our dominance to this other country of people. That's like what it was at the end of the day. When you strip it all down, it's quite absurd, but boy, it comes off as like hell yeah, dude.
Yeah,
send those three people onto a rocket to that piece of rock. Do it.
USA.
Okay.
USA.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, you listen to him talk, and man, it gets you fucking pumped up. You're like, yeah, man, you tell him, Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole movie is like that. I feel like you see these boys get fucking shot up into space. They're bouncing around on the moon for a while, and you're like, yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Like it's like kind of what you said. There's not a ton to talk about because a lot of this is just history, and it's not like the documentary does anything like insane or revolutionary. Like they're just showing what the story was. But I think the story, I mean, it's cool enough, holds up on its own.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as a documentary, it's very breezy. I mean,
Yep.
it's like an hour and 20 minutes, and it really like it feels exactly that long. It's just like you're just like, oh yeah, that was cool. It's nice to watch something that just like effortlessly kind of goes through the story. Doesn't overstay its welcome.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
We do have one of the best shots, I think, so far in the Criterion Collection. There is an astronaut, and he is eating a hot dog in space.
Oh,
So I thought that was super cool.
nice.
So if anyone's interested, you call me. I'll send you a pic
Yeah.
of this guy eating a hot dog in space. Well, it's funny because they're like, it's just after they do this whole spiel about like how all the food is like dehydrated and how they have to mix up everything, and then it cuts to like a guy and he's just eating a fucking hot dog.
Yeah.
And it's like, where do you get that? It's like Homer in space, where he like brings in the chips. They're like, hey, how'd you get those on here?
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Grand.
It's great.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess like to get to the heart of this thing, you have the like, I don't know, the unbelievable act of sending human beings to space, which I guess is like, it's a pretty astonishing thing. This idea that like, I mean, it is like not that far off from like a trip to the moon, where it's like, yeah, it's like you're firing a gun and there's a capsule and you have to get it off the ground, and like just like the amount of infrastructure that goes into building a rocket. Like you have these shots of these men. There's like just like dozens and dozens of guys, all with the same haircut, sitting around in a control room. And they're just like doing one job, and that's basically making sure the ship's where it's supposed to be, going the place it is, that everything's working. That's like their job. But that's like not even the people who like built this machine, who built this rocket, all the failures, like just like this like chronology of like getting a rocket ship built, and like building and that whole evolution of that. It's like all this like invisible labor that you don't even consider. Because it's just like, I don't know when you found out about like this idea of like traveling to the moon or traveling to space. Like you're like a little kid, right? Like you're 4 or 5 years old and you're hearing about this and you're like, yeah, cool, we went to the moon, because you just can.
Yeah.
You can just do that. But it's like, no, it took like how many generations of human beings to like actually be able to do that one thing?
I don't know, like I think it was like 8 months.
When finally they're like, yeah, you know what, I think it's time, and then they just went, all right, get the pieces together. Well, I mean, like you can apply this to like a lot of like any technology, like computers. Just like this idea of computers, and like the fact that you and I are conversing currently via Skype, hashtag Skype for life.
Don't give away the secrets to the show.
Like, it just like we're talking on laptops. There's like a real I don't know, a genealogy of like technology that's like super fascinating. That doesn't, I don't know how you could unpack it and give it its due, and like name check every single individual that was like part of that process. It's just unfathomable. So I mean, like those are the thoughts that come to me when I'm watching like that famous footage, the cliche footage of like all those like like I don't know what you call these things, but the couplings and like the towers holding everything into place, the explosion of fuel, you have to have the right amount to rocket fuel to like explode out so you don't kill everybody, sending it off up into space and think, well, hopefully it works. And hopefully, because sometimes it doesn't work, because this film is dedicated to those people who happen to be on one of those ships that didn't work out so well for them.
Yep.
So yeah, there's that grim business.
We're in business and feed.
And then like I guess the other thing too that like you'd forget about is that I guess like the idea that like astronauts are like almost like they're meatheads or something like that. Like they're just like jocks that are like, yeah, I'm going to space.
They're good all American men.
Yeah,
that's all you gotta know.
No, it's like no, these guys are like scientists.
Yeah,
like they have to like know their stuff, and like they got picked from like they had like the best like physicals or minds to handle situations, personalities. Like so many factors get dumped into this. It's really it is an amazing story. Yeah, from that standpoint. And my next question for you, RJ, is what is on your Traveling to the Moon mixtape?
Hoochie Mama by 2 Live Crew.
That's it?
That's it.
Both sides?
Huda bada hoochie mama. That's
Nice.
it. That's all I'm taking.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can't divulge what my real picks would be. It would give away too much of my character.
Oh.
People would make fun of me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Big Rock Candy Mountain. Big Rock Candy Mountain, and Hoochie Mama. Let's say that. Those would be my picks. And yours is probably the soundtrack to Happiness or something.
Your favorite.
Yeah. No, what's your song?
Or
your album?
That was a question just for you.
Just for me?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I blew that.
Yeah. I don't know, RJ. How about Rocket Man?
Nice.
Major Tom.
Space Oddity.
Fly Me to the Moon. You know, original picks.
Just any David Bowie CD. Hey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll work.
Did this movie at times remind you of Michael Bay's Armageddon?
Almost constantly.
Like
I was waiting for the moon to blow up.
I think it's incredible that like within like 10 releases you have Armageddon and For All Mankind, and then you just go,
I think what's incredible is the fact that Armageddon came before, and then they're like, "Ooh, shit! Maybe we should put in a real moon one."
Mm-hmm.
Did they blow up the moon in Armageddon? What movie was that? Mars Attacks.
Did they blow up the moon in Mars Attacks?
Well, there's some movie out there where the moon gets blown up.
There's an episode of Mr. Show where that happens.
Does the world go into chaos?
I think the episode kind of just ends.
I think that's how it would go in real life.
And it's about the evils of science.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, there's as alluded to in the intro for this episode, there is some talk of floating shit.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of went through the mental exercise of like, what would that be? As poop comes out and then it like kind of floats back to your butt. I don't know.
Can you describe that a little more?
I don't know.
A little more detail, please.
Well, just like what the sensation would be like. I guess it would just be like something soft, like going back up and touching.
It doesn't go back inside.
No, but it wants back. It'd be like kind of like kneading. It's like kind of like when your cat comes up to you and like rubs its face up against you. It's kind of like
I don't know if you totally understand what's happening here. It's not trying to get back.
Well, it's not trying to get back.
Body.
It won't go back in, but you get like little like poo kisses on your butt.
Who's to say it wouldn't just go like a straight shot clear across the room?
It would just float, free floating, zero gravity.
We all float down here, Georgie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So probably one of my favorite shots in this movie is there's where they cut to a guy pouring coffee out into a cup, and that's like where you're like watching it, and I go, whoa, gravity, and I'm like, yeah. Like. That's like something that you just take for granted. It's just gravity. It's like, what an amazing thing. And there's like idiots in the world that would be like, well, gravity doesn't work the way that you think it does. You can't answer these questions. Which then started making me think about people who think the moon landing is a hoax.
Oh, yes.
People who believe in the flat earth.
Oh, God.
Those types of folk. And then I guess I started thinking, like, I can't remember. I read, like, maybe this was a tweet somewhere along the line that, like was it like Buzz Aldrin, like, threatened to beat the shit out of, like, one of these guys?
No,
what was this? Like,
about a year ago, a guy came up, like a millennial, went up to Buzz Aldrin, fucking American hero Buzz Aldrin, and was like, "You never landed on the moon. that was a hoax. That was just all bullshit. And Buzz Aldrin punched him in the face.
Right.
And he said, I'm a goddamn American. No, he punched him in the face, and he was like, you got anything else to say? Let's go. And the guy sued like 89-year-old Buzz Aldrin, but like he was strong enough, he like knocked this guy over, and he was just like, "Fuck you." Because you know what? If I was him and people came up to me and said like the greatest thing I did in my whole life, if they told me I fucking faked it, I'd probably be mad too. They'd be like, "Hey, did you ever dump out hard and puke in a chip bag?" Or they'd be like, "We heard that was a hoax," and I'd be like, "You motherfucker."
That's what it means to be a real hero.
A real human being.
Hey, I want to hear some interesting stats I uncovered looking up moon landing hoaxer types.
Yeah, why don't you get into this conspiracy theory stuff and
well,
just dig deep.
From Wikipedia, bastion of all truth on the internet. Conspiracists have managed to sustain public interest in their theories for more than 40 years, despite the rebuttals and third-party evidence. Opinion polls taken in various locations have shown that between 6 and 20% of Americans and 28% of Russians surveyed believe that the manned landings were faked. Even as late as 2001, the Fox television network documentary Conspiracy Theory, Did We Land on the Moon?, claimed NASA faked the first landing in 1969 to win the space race. It's a lot of folk.
What else? Hit me with some Kubrick-esque conspiracy theories.
Okay. So after I read that, I was like, oh, you know what? I've got some time to like waste, like there's a thing that we have a shortage of, but time. So I popped on Conspiracy. Did we really land on the moon from 2001? Nice. That was on YouTube. I had it on while I was like drawing. It's narrated by, is it assistant director Skinner? Mitch Pileggi?
Seymour Skinner?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, A.D. Skinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's bringing his like X-Files cred to this conspiracy show.
Nice.
Talking about, did we really land on the moon? So I watched a couple of these things. This one I actually watched the entirety of, and then I watched another one and realized it was like the exact same talking points, only it was like over like 2 hours, 3 hours long or something. So I checked out after a little bit. But the one common guy who kind of, I think, kickstarted this whole moon hoax shit, Bill Casing. It takes like a few minutes to like completely dismiss this dude, but like every time you watch one of these documentaries, they always like present him as a expert of this field. Because so what he was, he worked for the company Rocketdyne, which apparently worked on the building of the Saturn V rocket.
Okay.
Which was like the groundwork for the Apollo shit, okay? And his job, though, which they always neglect to mention in these moon landing fucking documentaries, is that he has a bachelor in art for English. So he's got his BA in English, and he was hired by Rocketdyne to help write technical manuals that the company put out. So he's not a scientist. He's just a guy that writes technical manuals, but his understanding of this is like, well, this couldn't happen. Like, this is not possible. So when I watched this on TV back in 1969, I thought something was fishy, something was up. So he started like presenting his thoughts on this like as early as like the 74 or whatever. So he's just like a fucking dum-dum. Are you familiar with like the talking points of why the moon landing's fake? So there's like the whole like, why can't we see stars in the blackness in the background? Obviously, it must be fake. And it's like, well, no. Like, if you know how cameras work, and particularly like how light works, you'd realize that there's like a pretty good explanation for this. And so, of course, like always in these documentaries, there's like the NASA spokesman who's just like, he couldn't be like they always come off badly because they have such contempt for what they're being asked, and like so they don't like they're not being personable. They're not Neil Tyson Grayson fella saying they're not super. He's not charming and well spoken and like a really a good public face for like scientists. Like usually they're always like these like neebish little dudes who are just like, I don't want to be here. Your questions are stupid. Who would entertain these dumb things? But they always come off as like, well, what are they really hiding? It's like, no, they've under contempt. It's like when I remember watching this documentary on evolution, and like how the reason why like people are kind of like turning against evolution is because science doesn't do a good enough job packaging their theory, because scientists are so arrogant, I guess, even though because they know they're right, because they are right.
So actually, in grad school, I one time went to there was a grad student seminar, and there was one time an entire seminar dedicated to like public not like relations, but basically like public relations, like how to translate what scientists and researchers actually do to the public. And that's like, it's actually a pretty hot topic, because a lot of stuff that gets like funded and like gets the grants and stuff like that is like what they call the sexy science, even though sometimes it's not actually real or like not necessarily true, but they sell it in such a way and it becomes so popular.
Yeah, it can get funded and granted and stuff.
Yeah, it's like those anti-vaxxers. They like that just blew up, and then it went, even though it's like entirely not true. So no, yeah, that's actually like a very real thing. Is there's a real disconnect between like scientists, researchers, and the public relations and how to like talk to people and stuff like that.
Right.
So that's very real.
Oh yeah, no, it is. But
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So in this documentary, like you have the one guy from NASA who's the representative, and he's like, he just comes off as like dismissive, because he is, but then you have the one guy, but then you have like 4 or 5 people who say a lot of like, well, I've seen enough evidence to that. It's in my mind, like, and new evidence comes out every day, and you just have to go along and agree with what I'm saying, because that's the way this documentary's going. And then you have Assistant Director Skinner saying, "Is there more to this than it seems? Do the conspiracist theorists believe?" It's like, no, conspiracy theorists just give these guys way too much credit. They're not theorists of anything. They're just fucking they're dumb.
Well, so yeah, I'm well versed in this because of all the alien stuff I watch. But and like a lot of those guys, they're on the level, but a lot of them are pretty bad too. Like, you know, the wacky haired dude, the memed guy, the aliens. Yeah. Like so this is why I always think that like I could very easily become an alien expert or something, because that fucking guy, he gets credited as like a doctor or something like that, but he has like a bachelor's in sports performance or something, like gym studies, something like that, and like he gets credited as like doctor in alien relations. So this is my audition for to be an alien conspiracist commentator. I'll do it. I'll do it.
Oh,
for sure.
So one of the other talking points of why we didn't land on the moon is the flag waving.
Okay. So
that one.
And you go, and then I have something to say about that.
Okay, so that one's just like, it's so inane. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, how would you know if there was no air on the moon other than what NASA tells you? So like there's no way of arguing against what they're claiming, because we wouldn't know what flags would do on the moon if we had never gone there, other than what they would present to us. But all these guys go off as there's no air there, and
so I know this argument. And when they were taking pictures with the flag, I noticed that when the flag moves, it's because they're touching the flagpole.
Yeah,
they're moving it.
Yeah,
that's why it moves. It doesn't. It's not like
there is gravity on the moon. Like,
yeah, it's just not as much as here. That's all.
Yeah. That's, like, this is the thing, but they're old, but they know better than people. And then I don't know. It always comes back to the photography stuff, because there's like the ones where it's like, why are the astronauts, when they're in the shadow, still reflecting light? It doesn't make sense. That means there's more than one light source. And it's like, okay, that's like, if you have never, like, and then they talk to like guys that are like photo experts, and they go, I have no explanation for that. It's like, no, it's called diffusion of light. Like, this is like photography one type of questions where it's like, yeah, if you bounce light off of like a light surface, that light reflects outward. It's like when you wear a white shirt, it reflects. And so you have like this entire like gray mass that's reflecting light all the time. And then you have a guy wearing a white astronaut outfit, which will reflect any light that hits it. And so that's what's happening. Like, Like
So
what's so hard to like grasp? But these are like they think they're like the terminal points. There's like no way we try to replicate this and we couldn't reproduce it. It's like yeah, because you're not on the moon. Like you'd have to have like you're on an entire surface that's like completely reflecting light.
Yeah, you'd have. Oh God, it's so frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
so frustrating.
this is what I do to myself. But like I'm like I don't know. I find like I'm drawn to this like stupid shit, and the internet just supplies it. Like you can find a theory for fucking anything. I remember like a couple like years ago, I was like watching these videos about a guy claiming to be like a super soldier. And it's just this fucking there's this fucking loser in his basement and just like going through these like scars that he had on his body and like talking about where he got those scars and like it's always like the government put something in my body, and it's just like all these damaged bastards just like rambling on the internet. It's like, well, at least they're not hurting anybody yet. They're safe on the internet, talking to their audience of like 30 people, and of course there's other people saying, yeah, no, I think I'm a super soldier too. Of course you are. And it's just like these people are totally unextraordinary human beings. Like they're just like, no, you're not. If you were a super soldier, you should be like ripped and like have success in your life. You shouldn't be like this like damaged asshole posting YouTube videos. God,
dude, this is what it's come to, hey?
Mm-hmm. This is what For All Mankind has brought me to, looking up shit online. So some other things I looked at, because there was this list, this conspiracy theory, did we land on the moon, was on. It's like esoteric films and like weird documentaries. I watched a 3-minute documentary on looking for mushrooms, which was some art house shit. I started watching What Happened on the Moon, but I just gave up because it's just the same old thing. Bill Casing just trotting out the same old talking points. It never changes. They always like, look, in this angle you can't see this antenna on his backpack, and in this other angle it's there, but we're led to believe that this is real and this has been edited together. We didn't. And it's like, and it's either like we never landed on the moon, or we have landed on the moon, but we faked it till we made it.
Yeah.
Which like, come on.
I've heard that also. Hey man, even Chris Nolan's in on that in Interstellar.
Yeah.
They have the same line where Connie's like, "You're saying we never landed on the moon." Brother. All right.
God.
Silly.
Yep. And then I was reminded that Alex Jones, back in the day, he was a documentary filmmaker. Were you aware of that?
I didn't. Was he a good one?
No, he's as good as you'd expect. He got I watched about 3 minutes of his second documentary film, Police State 2000 from 1999.
Oh, that sounds wicked.
So it opens up with like the music "O Fortuana," which is that super like dramatic music, and it gets, and it's like over like just footage of like, I don't know, the police and the military doing their jobs, like enforcing the law and doing raids and stuff like that. I don't know. It's like, sure, you could talk about the military state a little bit, but this is like something else. And of course, this like big montage with this music playing over top of it ends with a still image of Bill Clinton morphing into Hitler.
Nice.
And then it cuts to like young Alex Jones when he was like a little bit more fit, in his real Texan accent. You just know he's from Texas, and he's just talking about the police state, saying a lot of words. So he was an early pioneer in this crap, and he's made a whole bunch of movies, and I'm sure they're all like more and more less well made than the next, and just like bad, like exactly what you expected 90s filmmaking of this level. Yeah.
I hope that they all use that music, and then in one of them it's just really like boring stuff where it's like a dude filing taxes, and it's like
let's see here, we got the Obama deception, Endgame,
of course.
Dark Secrets, Fall of the Republic. There's like 4 police states. He made sequels. Police State 4, The Rise of FEMA, The Order of Death, Police State 3, Total Enslavement, 9/11, The Road to Tyranny, Matrix of Evil, Police State 2, The Takeover, America Destroyed by Design. I believe that was his first film, and all of these are at least 2 hours long.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, they're real great pieces of film. So yeah, conspiracy theorists are assholes.
Mm-hmm.
They're dumb. They're not asking big questions. They're not trying to like figure out the truth. They are just trying to sell you whatever crap they're making. They're failures in their own world. Fuck them. I just don't. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I walked away from watching For All Mankind. A genuine piece of film in like filmmaking and watching bad crap.
Yeah.
And then
So,
and then you really appreciate how a good documentary can be brought about.
so it's kind of like my experience where I watched a movie I liked and then it almost got ruined by a bad one.
Yeah, Apollo 18.
Oh, God, man. That movie sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Sucks.
Sucks so much.
Yeah, at least it was only fucking like an hour and 16 minutes or something like that.
Oh, so RJ, did you know this film, For All Mankind, was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Documentary in 1990?
Goddamn right. I didn't, but that's dope.
Yeah. Oh, so one of the things too, going back to like how they kind of edit together like various Apollo trips and like the narrative's kind of a jumble.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I found interesting was the actual Kennedy address to Rice University on the nation's space effort in 1962. He actually says "for all people," but they actually alter it and dub in "mankind" into "people" from another Kennedy clip, which is kind of strange. But then it's like, I'm like, oh, this is the sort of stuff that like just fuels like fucking conspiracy people. Like, well, you know, they did this, so that means that they did all these other things too, perpetrating the lie that's been held over us.
Jarrett, I don't like any of the things that you're talking about. They make me angry.
Yeah. Let's see here.
They make me angry.
And yeah, anyway, yeah,
Stupid.
trash. How did you like that music in this documentary? How did you like that, Brian?
I thought it was fucking dope, man.
Mm-hmm.
It was wicked. I think at one point they had that sleepwalking song in there. I think originally it was not Richie Valens, but someone like Richie Valens. Modest Mouse remade it one time, so I like that jam. I like it.
You're down with that? Cool.
Yeah, I'm down with that sickness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so conspiracy theories, that's basically my one thing I wanted to bring up. I also watched a documentary about LSD.
Ooh, was it the Montauk Chronicles? Because you could have got moon landing, aliens, and LSD all in the same documentary.
Nah, I actually watched like a real documentary about LSD, The Beyond.
That one was real.
The Beyond Within.
Yeah. So I hate all these like moon landing conspiracy theories, but I'll watch the fuck out of alien conspiracy movies. So I don't know what that says about my character. Probably that I'm right.
That you like aliens.
Nice.
Some might even say you fucking love aliens.
Some have said that. It's accurate.
Well, RJ, you know,
Yes.
Speaking of love, there are people who hated this film.
Really?
Well, disliked.
Vaguely.
So who hates For All Mankind? Male Deshout does not like this. He gave it 2.5 stars. He says, this should have been so much better. Endless images of astronauts playing with objects in zero gravity and space controllers smoking cigars while pressing some buttons. The opening sequence of the shuttle is exhilarating, but the rest is pretty uninteresting, repetitive, and misleading. They even found a way to make the moon landing underwhelming.
No, he's so wrong, man. The very best shots in this are those fucking dudes smoking cigars in like in Houston. There's a shot where there's a dude with sunglasses and a cigarette and he's on a computer with a headset, and I wish I could be that guy so much. Those are the best parts of the movie. Easy.
Song Dong Lee, he gave this 2.5 stars. Once, he said, in quotes, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. I've been always wondering if that was extemporaneous. I guess it wasn't, according to this documentary. I might have put 5 out of 5 if it were Korean.
I I don't really understand any of what he's saying.
Yeah.
Why does he not like this? Because the Koreans didn't land on the moon?
Yeah, I guess he was bored, but it wasn't about Korea, so he said whatever.
Well, that's dumb.
Yeah. Ewan gave this 2.5 stars. These are the only 3 really starred low ratings for this. I can't really fault this documentary about the Apollo space mission of the late 1960s and early 1970s. It tells a big story using archival footage of the era shot by the astronauts and those working at NASA, and it does so using only these images and the voices of the astronauts. The value is in seeing this footage, some of which is shot from space and presents uncanny views of the Earth and of the work of the astronauts were doing, and hearing from the participants. Nevertheless, it can at times be a little difficult to tell apart all of those buzz-cut white guys in their control center, and the missions are interwoven fairly fluidly, meaning we jump back and forward in time. It's fascinating and informative work for those with a strong interest in the space race, and for those people, this is likely to be far more interesting than it was to me.
So for all of these like negative reviews, it just doesn't seem like they actually have anything bad to say.
No, other than they're just like indifferent to it.
Yeah.
That's not a bad. It's not a bad place to be.
Yeah.
There's like I don't know if there's anything here to be like I hate this, because you probably like those people would just not watch a documentary about the space landing, and it's like how this movie gives you exactly what you expect. Like it's it's a documentary about the Apollo missions, and that's what it is.
Unbelievable, Jarrett.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
any other thoughts?
No, I thought this was dope. And I like space stuff, and I wish I could eat a hot dog in space.
Mm-hmm. And I guess if tomorrow it turns out we never landed on the moon, we've been successfully bamboozled.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I might make up for that. I have other projects cooking.
All right. Well, with that said, that's it for this particular review. After the break, we're going to break into those hot dogs and shit into bags.